Hello, teachers. We're going to continue our focus on inviting students to do more in our classes. Here's our ideal from section 88. We do have teachers. We don't want everybody to speak all at the same time, but we do want people to speak, our students to speak, and for everyone to listen so that when all have spoken, all may be edified of all. Everybody's got equal privilege. And so we're going to look at getting more from more students. Let's dive into our first lesson of the week with that in mind. Right, here we are at Matthew 6, 1 through 18. Not very many verses. In fact, I should draw your attention to this call-out box that says a few of those verses are the Lord's Prayer, and we're going to talk about that in a later lesson. So we have even fewer verses than you thought. But the first idea given in the lesson is kind of a fun one. You could draw something on the board to get more out of more students. So I might recommend having a student come forward, one of your class members to come forward and hand them a drill or a hammer, something that you brought from home. And let's say the student's name is Steve. We're talking possible motives, and we could follow the scripts. Instead of Gustavo, would say Steve was seen yesterday with this drill in his hand fixing his neighbor's fence. We're going to look at possible motives that Steve had for doing that. And just to broaden the horizons of the class and to make sure that we can have more participation, say, for example, maybe an alien came to him and said, you need to fix the fence or we're going to invade your planet. But you're going to invite every student in the next 30 seconds to come up with a possible motive for Steve fixing his neighbor's fence and see if we can come up with lots and lots of answers. And so this is kind of fun, kind of silly, but what we're doing is getting students involved and talking, and hopefully in a way that all students can talk as we start the class. I'm a firm believer that if we could get students awake and alert and using their voices early in class, they're more likely to continue that throughout the class. Next idea is going to be something that I think we'll focus on for a week or two. Here it is. To get more from more students, we can follow up. Every time we ask questions, we can ask follow-up questions to our students. And so if they give a short answer, we can invite more. And we can invite more students to comment on what each others are saying. And so a lot of teachers have noticed that in our new curriculum, there's a lot less curriculum and a lot more questions. And so when we choose a question, we can say, when students respond, I'm going to say thank you and call them by name. And then I'm going to follow up with a question that would repeat a portion maybe of what they said to get more. We want to hear more from them. Here's an example from the teacher's manual. So the first question that is printed is, why are our motives important? That's a good question. We could have a lot of answers, and so we want to have a good discussion and keep students talking. So they might share a short answer, and we'll want to help them to offer a little bit more. For example, if a student would say, because if your motive is off, then it doesn't really matter, here's our script. Would say, this is Billy. Thank you, Billy. So why do you think that it doesn't really matter if your motive is off? Now, Billy probably has more to say, and because we offered a follow-up question, he can now talk a little bit more through it. Let's say Sally says, because it says something about us. So we could say, thanks, Sally, I like that. Why do you think it says something about us? And all we're doing is we're keeping a conversation alive. So instead of saying, that's the answer, that's all we need, we're saying, ooh, I like what you're saying. I value what you're saying. Tell me more. Let's see where this happens next in our lesson. As we scroll down here, we'll see that we're looking at our motives, and we're going to examine Jesus and his motives. We have our first search, and notice we've got a look for, which is awesome. So always invite your students to look for and maybe even mark some things. But we're going to look in these verses for what the Savior taught about our motives for righteous acts. And then you're going to ask students to summarize what they found as they were looking for what the Savior taught about our motivations. And so here's the question. How would you summarize what the Savior taught? There could be lots of answers, but we want to try to get more from more of our students on this. So over here, Sam says, well, don't do stuff just to be seen. So you could say, thank you, Sam. That's a great answer. why do you think it's important not to just do stuff to be seen? So again, we're not really creating much of a new question, and you could almost say anything. You could even say, tell me more about that, and Sam's going to have more to say. Let's say Mary over here says, it's not the outside things that matter very much. So you'd say, thank you, Mary. Why do you think outside things don't matter very much? It seems like it's a big deal in our world. And then Mary could add to that. Again, we're just inviting students to talk more, speak more, share more. As we scroll down in the lesson for the week, we'll see that there's lots of questions that are posed in the teacher manual, and most of them are good. You may want to adjust how you ask them, and you probably don't want to, every time a student says something, say thank you and pepper them with follow-up questions. But the habit of inviting students to speak more, share more, explore their answers a little bit more, and it tells students that you care, that you're listening, and that we're having a discussion together. My invitation to you is to try this out this week. As questions come, listen to students and invite them to share a little bit more. As we seek to teach in the Savior's way, we'll find access to the joy and the great things that happen as we learn and grow together in the gospel of Jesus Christ. Thanks for all that you do.